Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the world's premiere, the world's only podcast purely dedicated to cycling, style, takes, fashion, fits, and overall lifestyle. I am your regular host, Alex. I am back on the podcast, joined by your regular co-hosts, Warren, and it's the return of Tony, who is back after I'm going to say a 6-week hiatus or an 8-week hiatus. How old is your daughter, Tony? Because that's about the time that you've been gone.
7 weeks. Yeah, it must be about 7 weeks. I think 2 episodes, because we're now that we're no longer bound to any responsibility of when we release. I guess we've had 2 episodes over a couple months instead of 2 over 1 month.
So how are you adjusting to the life as a cycling dad, as a gravel dad?
I mean, I haven't got out on the gravel yet. But I mean, really, so the road, I guess, is sort of inappropriate that I'm still doing that. The dad watts, I feel like they haven't kicked in. I got dropped on our Fast Friday ride. In fairness, Warren got dropped too, but he was like really sick.
Yeah, that's why.
He's fast enough to keep up with these people. So I'd like to, if any listeners have read the scientific literature, the peer reviewed studies on when the dad watts kick in officially, or sort of, the typical time. I feel like maybe it's a bit too early. Maybe I need to sort of be a dad a little longer. Maybe it's the 3-month mark or something, that those sort of extra watts just show up.
How often did you get out there since the birth of your daughter? It seems to me like you've ridden quite a bit over the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, I've gotten out there. I mean, I think for anyone who says that being a parent is hard is soft. They're just soft. It's a change in your life, and I guess maybe it's just I'm not an anxious person. And so, my wife and I made a deal pretty early on about like making sure we had like at least a little bit of sort of personal time, for ourselves. So she's gone out and done some of her hobbies and errands, an hour here, an hour there. While I take the kiddo for a walk around, or just kind of hang out and watch some baseball. So we both tried to make sure that we didn't get kind of too consumed by it all. It's been good, but yeah, being a parent's not that hard.
Well, yeah, we'll see about that. There's some more
7
changes
weeks
coming.
and already declaring parenting easy.
Okay, up to 7 weeks is not that. No, we've also had a very good kid. I do know that it's different for everyone. That's, to the future
Sure,
parents.
because there's a lot of bad kids out there, right, Tony?
Yeah, well, no, but to the future parents out there, I would say anyone gives you advice, don't take it, because every child is different. You get told so many things, and everyone sort of says it set in stone, but every child is different, and we have a sleeper, a good eater.
Good for you that you got out there, because I definitely wasn't riding as much as you have been in the first 7 weeks of life of my daughter.
I'm also not working, to be fair to you, Alex. I'm not working right now, so.
Well, that helps. That for sure helps. So okay, so Tony and I were gone last. I was gone the last episode. Tony's been gone the last 2 episodes, and we've had the incredible Italian Alex and the fantastic Skylar sit in for us with some great takes. Excellent chemistry on the podcast. Love Italian Alex. Love Skylar. They've done a great job. And I think that maybe on the last episode, Warren dropped, I think, probably what will become known as a Cycling Fashion Week Hall of Fame take, where if you are to do the Hall of Fame of all of our episodes, this was maybe the greatest take. When Warren canaled Girona, I listened to this and I was thinking, yes, Warren, keep going. It was an incredible take that Warren had, really just dunking on the whole influencer culture. I am going to ask the question, though, Warren, should you have canaled Mallorca as well? Because I feel like there's pretty stiff competition between Girona and Mallorca in terms of the influencer destinations that are essentially, it's all the same destination. So did you miss the boat on Mallorca?
That's hard for me to say based on what I see on my Instagram Discover page and fed. It seems to be a lot of Girona content because I don't really follow many influencers on Instagram, like a few here and there for various research purposes. I feel like it's a Girona. Like, I'm absolutely fine with also throwing Mallorca in the Canal, because sure, I know like a lot of like, I have seen some content from Mallorca where there's like brand summits or like other sort of get-togethers or whatever, where if you ever wonder where your money's going when you pay like $300 for a jersey, that's where it's going. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. For me, Girona is still what I would Canal, but
It's more ubiquitous than
yeah,
Mallorca.
I'm going to agree with
I gotta
Warren
say
on that.
Mallorca looks really nice too, but
yeah, it looks less overrun with influencers than Girona. And sorry, I did want to add that because I mentioned this when I was canaling Girona, that we were gonna get in touch with our good friend David Millar and see what he thinks, and he fully supported our canal. We sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my god, yes, I can't wait for them all to leave." So, or not verbatim, that's essentially what he said.
I don't think I've noticed as much going on. I feel like Mallorca has passed its prime. It's now time to go back, right? Like, I feel like when the kind of influencer world started out a couple years ago, kind of what it's become now, from just some cool cyclists taking photos to trying to sort of be like an industry and a job and stuff. Like, Mallorca was a bit hotter than Girona. I mean, Girona's been hot for like pro cyclists, right? I mean, that was Lance's spot 25 years ago. I feel like Mallorca kind of like faded out, and everyone, because everyone's got to kind of do the same thing. Everyone, even though Mallorca looks beautiful and is probably incredible, everyone like had to be in Girona. And this is kind of to Warren's point of why he canaled it, is like, even Mallorca is like a close and different option than Girona, but it's like Girona is the spot. Like, you need to make sure that you're in Girona because that's getting you your best content, right? That's like pushing your best feed. That's, I guess, like probably like also like meeting up with other influencers, doing like influencer cycling things together. And so Mallorca is kind of like Mallorca is now like kind of niche almost again. Like, I feel like you don't hear as many people talking about their trip to Mallorca as you used to, and now it's all Girona all the time.
I wanted to commend Warren because that was one of the greatest takes ever dropped on this podcast. I couldn't agree more. Girona is firmly in the canal. We will let you know when it's out of the canal. Is it in that river, like all that bridge that all the influencers take pictures on in Girona? That river kind of looks like a canal, to be honest. The water looks like it's about the same quality. Anyway, it's in there.
When you mentioned the Cycling Fashion Week Hall of Fame, we're coming up on our 50th episode. Have we been around long enough to have like a clip show?
Not even close. Oh,
No,
clip shows are the worst.
No, probably not. This will be in about a decade.
I know they're the worst, but they'd be a lot easier for us to make. You just go pull out some old clips and be like, for our new listener. Anyway, I don't actually want to make a clip show. I was just I just, maybe 100 episodes. That's what we'll do.
I'll retire before I make a clip show.
So we got a special episode today. We got a special guest. So we have Terrence and Jesse from Heavy Pedal, the kid brand out of Arizona in the USA, that joined us to talk about the brand, talk about Arizona, and a whole bunch of other things. It was a pretty interesting discussion. Unfortunately, our podcast platform failed on me, I would say about an eighth into the interview for me, and I had to drop off. Tony and Warren handled it very well. They did the rest of the interview. So we got Jesse and Terrence from Heavy Pedal coming in to talk to us about the brand. And with that, we'll go straight to the interview.
For our next segment, the main segment of the show, we're excited to welcome Jesse and Terrence from Heavy Pedal, which, if you're not familiar with them, they are a US-based kit brand out of Arizona that we've been aware of on the pod, I think, for a little while.
I've been because of we'll get into their origins, but because of my fixed gear background, I've been aware of them for whatever they've been around for, 15 years or 12 years or something like that. So
yeah, Tony's got to make the claim that I, Warren, have been aware of them for the last couple of years. Cause I think I actually first heard about you because of your custom program. And then because of that, I started looking into your actual kit designs. And a reason we wanted to have you guys on the show is because, as we'll get into, is you have a selection of sort of the staple block colors, but you also get into some like a lot wilder designs and some interesting collabs. And yeah, we're excited to have you on and bring something a bit different to the podcast for us to talk about. And we're looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. So Terrence and Jesse, welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So what we often like to do is, and this will relate to, maybe how Tony discovered the Heavy Pedal brand originally, but we just wanted to know how each of you got into cycling, and yeah, not even necessarily the brand, just how you got into cycling itself to start.
I got into cycling just like as a kid riding around. And I remember like there's childhood photos of me wearing like a Colnago cycling cap just because I like cycling. And someone in my family must have just been really into it because they were the ones buying the Colnago cycling caps back then. But yeah, as a kid, I got around on bikes, and then I took it a little more serious in college. I rode a bike to get around. And that's when I got into fixed gear bikes because it's just a lot less maintenance and super easy. And they're just like the popular bike of the time. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into cycling, is especially more as a sport and not just like riding around the neighborhood with friends.
I kind of grew up more like in the outskirts of town. So I grew up dirt roads, got into like BMX, dirt jumping. So I kind of got my start that way. And my dad was into road cycling, and he'd always try to get me to do like the L Tour to Tucson. And I just thought it was so lame to do like road cycling. It's so funny. And, he dragged me out a couple times. I'd do a tandem with him and do like the whole Tour to Tucson with him. And then it wasn't until I got into like probably my later 20s that I got into fixed gear bikes. And that's when I met the Terrence over at Heavy Pedal. They were just kind of doing their thing, and it was all fixed gear oriented. And I just kind of liked the vibe of it. It reminded me more of like the BMX routes or skateboarding. And then it really wasn't until like my mid 30s that I even got a road bike. And now I'm just full on roadie. So,
Obsessed.
Well, it's something that I hate meaning to ask people, guests that I think kind of have similar backgrounds to us in terms of like getting into it, whether it be through skateboarding and fix or sort of riding around. And like you kind of said, like, oh, it really seems sort of uncool in a way. I mean, I think Alex has a bit of a different background because his dad was super into it and he grew up a little more fan of the tour and stuff. But like for us to eventually get to the point where, it all just seemed kind of lame and the dentist stuff. And then we're all shaving our legs and buying spandex and like worrying about our weight and finding out all these numbers and stuff. And it's just like I don't think I ever thought when I first got my first fixed bike wasn't even it was just a conversion fixed wheel on an old road frame. But if you had told me, whatever it was a couple of years later, I'd be shaving my legs and spandex and, worrying about if I, how much I weighed and what my power was, I think you were, crazy. But road cycling seems to turn everybody once they get the bug.
Yeah, I never even thought I would ever wake up at 5:30 a.m. Life changes.
Jesse, are you one of those people that does like BMX stuff on a road bike? I feel like I see that on Instagram sometimes. People like, hopping curbs, like launching jumps. Do you do any of that?
Not too much. Maybe if I'm on a gravel bike, I'll get a little bit more risky. I'm a little too old to be flying through the air.
Are you both from Arizona originally?
We are. I'm from Phoenix, though. Jesse's from Tucson.
Yeah.
A lot of people from Canada travel to Arizona to go on cycling trips, mostly in the winter. A lot of people go to Tucson. Actually, I think they want to climb Mount Lemmon. And from what I've heard, it's a fantastic place to ride. Like, tell us a little bit about the cycling scene in Arizona.
Yeah, we definitely have like a cycling scene of like people who want to take cycling a little bit more serious. We don't really have like a commuter thing where there's not a ton of people riding down the street to work. You don't really see that in Phoenix.
Yeah.
But definitely people like to come to Arizona. Definitely to get out of Canada. It's not raining here. The weather's like, great in the winter.
61 degrees during the day in the winter. So yeah.
And Jesse could touch on Tucson because like pros go and train in Tucson.
Yeah, I think Armstrong even had a cabin on Mount Lemmon, and he would just do repeats up and down. But I mean, it's I think it's about like an 8,000 foot climb in like 27 miles, depending on where you're starting from. But it's also just super scenic. You're starting off in the Saguaro National Park, and then you're in the high desert. And then by the time you get to the top, there might be snow up there, and it's like pine trees. And so, I mean, just it's a pretty scenic, amazing ride to do.
Would you guys say that the place that you're from has an influence on your designs and kind of how you approach design and kit at all? Like, can we see Arizona in the heavy pedal kits?
I think you could see it mostly if you think about like our longevity of how we've never produced anything long sleeve or like long leg tights or anything like that, because we don't think in terms of that. We just barely started doing like long sleeve stuff within like the last year and a half, 2 years or something like that. So those kind of influences, Alex, absolutely. As far as the design of the kits, we do go with like a color palette for spring, summer, and then a different one for fall, winter. So that's just really more like where fashion is concerned. So as far as like, you're not going to see a lot of like cactus and stuff like that in our design, but yeah, definitely influences kind of what we make. And we're trying to step out of that so that everyone can wear heavy pedal year round.
You mentioned how you have a couple different palettes that you do per year. So be interested to hear more about that, but also based on some of your kits, like the I'm going to call them weed kits, but I don't know how you might call them, or like the low speed club, that kind of thing. It feels like you're willing to like try a lot of different things with the design. So we're wondering where the ideas or even just the color choices come from.
Yeah, the 420 kit just came from. We release a kit every 420. We've been doing it for a while now, especially since marijuana use is legal pretty much all over the United States. That's where the 420 kit comes from. The long slow distance club, cycling club. I think that's the LSD one.
Yeah.
I'll let Jesse touch on that because he works with that designer a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
So I mean, we work with a lot of different designers as well, and sometimes they'll come up with like, I have this cool concept, and so for this particular one, it's this designer that works over at Nike, and he was like, just submitted this thing. He's like, oh, I got this long LSDCC, long slow distance cycling culture, and we did like t-shirts, jerseys, and it just looked really cool. So I mean, that's kind of where that came from. But I would say, like, as far as like influence, it's kind of changed over the years. Like, if you go take like a deep dive and you go back to like when we first started doing kits maybe 8-9 years ago, is like very influenced by like graffiti, because we grew up doing graffiti and stuff like that when we were younger. So I think that had a big impact as far as like design goes. And then it's just been kind of evolving, and like every couple of years I feel like we kind of make this new chapter of our brand, and things evolve.
just our taste evolve as we get older and stuff like that, and things we want to see on the apparel changes. So
And I would say even just cycling, fashion has changed. So you got to kind of keep up with times. If you keep doing the same thing we were doing 8 years ago, I mean, maybe it's going to come full circle, I think, and everything's going to get wild and crazy again. But I mean, you just got to kind of keep up with trends and try to also put your unique perspective on what the trends are going to be looking like.
I think that that's a sort of a great point with what the trends are, because I think right now, and I want to kind of get your take on this, maybe Wout and Mathieu van der Poel might be a bigger battle in cycling, but to me right now, the biggest battle in cycling is earth tones versus sort of bold, eccentric designs, right? It's a debate. We've talked about it. That's where probably a ton of our engagement comes on our sort of social media and emails, is people either, saying this is too much, I want to stick with my earth tones, or people saying I'm so bored of this. What's your take on it? I know you guys do some, simple colors as well, but some of your kits really out there. Some of your collabs, probably your Liquid Death collab is, one of your more popular things of recent note. Where do you stand on it? You think it's just there should be a place for both? Everyone should have a couple sort of block color earth tones, and then a few wild kits for the sort of Tuesday night World Championships, or where do you stand? Where do you stand on the greatest cycling battle?
it would be weird to have like a brand with just one point of view, just because humans, like, we all have a different point of view. You know what I mean? We all like different things. So, and even internally in this conversation that we have, is that we like some of that like color blocking stuff. It can look really cool. You know what I mean? But we also like here and there to have just like a more wild looking kit. And I think those are two totally separate customers. And we don't lean into either one like too heavily. We just kind of try to have something for both of them.
So Terrence, you said there's sort of two different customers. Do you have an idea of like or is there somebody you would say there is the sort of the heavy pedal cyclist or rider, or do you look to kind of speak to lots of different people with these different designs?
I think our overarching conversation is talking to people like kind of like us. You know what I mean? We're not like uptight cyclists or like extremists from a cycling perspective. So I think our outward appearance and like how our like brand voice and stuff like that is sort of just like how we are.
And it's like, what do we want to wear? Like, I ride a lot, so I'm like, what do I
Yeah.
want to wear? And sometimes, it's like, I just want to wear a solid black jersey, solid black bibs. I might want to wear something wild and bright and colorful. It could be like nighttime, and I'm like, I just want something loud that maybe gets a little bit more attention. And I'm sure that's with most people. Not everyone's going to be wearing the same exact kit every day.
It's funny you say that. I think that is true. Like that's certainly how I feel. Is like some days I just want to wear something really basic. Like I was doing a really easy, like I'll say recovery ride, but that would have to imply that I like competed in a race. But
A recovery ride for Warren is only 350 watts, just an average. Just that's his easy spin.
You know, and I was just like, I don't want to wear something too crazy. But you know, you guys sent us some kit, and the one I've been wearing is I think it's called the Terrain jersey, and
That's the attack kit.
I put it on. It was like a morning ride where I was like, oh, this might be a little spicy, and I want to feel spicy. So I just didn't want to wear like
Warren
a plain
dresses for
kit,
mood.
you know? Exactly. It's like my kid is a mood ring.
Yeah, you know, if he knows it's a spicy ride, and I kind of agree with that, right? That's how we sort of call it here, like the Tuesday World Championships. So sort of sometimes there's some rides around Toronto, probably lots of places do it, you know, really fast, sort of hammer fest rides, and those are the ones you want to be kind of like out there with. And then, you know, Warren sort of said sometimes you're on your own, a little solo ride. We have some sort of places we just do laps, kind of not officially closed off to cars, but in the morning there'll be a few, and maybe you're on your own. So I feel like dressing for mood is a really important part of cycling, and also like the type of ride. Like if you're gonna show up with the legs, you got to show up with the kit.
Anyway, I was just saying that I put on that kit, and it just made me feel, I don't want to say more motivated, but it just felt like I was more dressed for the occasion. It did not help me keep up with the young cyclist who's 11 years younger than me, but you know, I felt like I could try. To go back to what you were talking about, that kit, I do know you wanted to mention the plan, or a sort of a plan you had for that kit.
Yeah, so that's that's like our attack line, which is like our mid-level line. And then we also have something that we always wanted to do, coming from the fixed gear culture. And, when you're from that part of cycling, it's a lot of people that don't necessarily have a lot of money to buy an expensive road bike. And then you got to buy a helmet, you got to get shoes, you got to get sunglasses, and the list goes on and on and on. And then you're like, oh, I have to have a jersey and bib. What we wanted to do is we wanted to have $100 full cycling kit. So, $45 for the jersey, $55 for the bib. And that's just something we wanted to do. And, just because it's $100 doesn't mean that we want it to be, oh, it's this really cheaply made
like
cycling
Amazon
kit.
cycling
Yeah, like
kit.
something that you get on Amazon and it falls apart after a ride. And the continuation of that is like, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? So we're actually going to be upgrading our $100 line, which is it'll eventually be our attack line, will eventually be our $100 line.
Yeah, it used to be our tempo line, and those fabrics were a little bit heavier. We always ask ourselves, like, we'll pull something out and be like, and just ask each other, like, would you go for a ride in this tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like, based on what it's made out of and the weight of it and all that kind of stuff. Our answer to the tempo was yes for a long time, but over time, you start to feel that kit next to all the other like nicer stuff that you own, and we started to really like question it, like, would we really wear that? And the answer inevitably became no. And then we were like, okay, well then we need to figure out a way to make our attack line, which was a step up from that, and quite a higher price point. We need to figure out a way to make that the $100 cycling kit, because as we all know, the barrier to entry to cycling can be very high. You know what I mean? And if we can help a cyclist or anyone getting into the industry to be able to have something you can put on and feel confident and look good in and be breathable, we definitely want to be able to give that to like new cyclists and people just getting into the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge thing to have just in cycling in general. I started kind of road cycling pretty early. Similar, we talked about the fixed gear stuff. I got a road bike pretty early on into that, but I was a university student, not a lot of money. And to be honest, I haven't sort of made a lot of money throughout my life in the way some stuff costs in the sport. So always having options, because I am an incredibly vain and style focused person. So having just, we're transparent on this podcast. We're been fortunate enough to get some stuff from some great brands. I've been able to make sure I'm stylish always, but before that, and for those who don't, having option is really good. Now, this also brings me to a question, and you're answering for the fashion cycling kit manufacturer, because what you mentioned just made me think of something. So this isn't specific to your brand, but you made me think of it. And the first brand I have to ask the question to. Inevitably, we'll talk about a brand and then someone will, so if we say something really good about them, and then someone will DM us or email us and say, that brand is garbage. Why are you saying this stuff? The brand is falling apart. I bought this thing. Here's a picture of the seams, whatever they say. This is an Amazon thing. Why are you talking so highly? Again, not specific to you guys, about all brands, whatever. What would you say to the customer who buys something from you and they're not happy with the quality? Because I assume some of that's just, whether it's the price point or quality control sometimes skips. Maybe they got to think. What would you say? Should they email you? Should they say to you, hey, I got this thing and I've noticed it's kind of falling apart a lot earlier than I would expect. I'm not really happy with it. Like, what's the answer? Instead of them going on telling all their friends, telling everybody that X brand is garbage and it's, no better than Amazon, what would you as a kit manufacturer say someone had a piece of kit that they weren't happy with the quality of?
I think that's a great question. And we're entrepreneurs in the fact that we own a cycling apparel company, you know what I mean? But we're still consumers at the same time. And I hate when I buy something, like I bought something from a brand called W Taps. It's a really expensive Japanese brand. And like the bottom of the shirt just like unraveled, And I wrote to them and they're like, oh, you know what, unraveled, we'll give you like a 15% off coupon code or something like that. I don't like that as a consumer. You know what I mean? So I've always told Jesse really handles like all that incoming questions from customers. I've always told him like, hey, if a seam came undone or whatever it is, and they haven't owned the kit for like 3 years or something like that, you know what I mean? If it's happened like more recently, let's get a photo of it. Let's get it back to us. Let's check it out, and then let's just refund them. Let's not, or send them out a brand new bib or jersey or whatever it is. We err on the side of the customer being happy as opposed to like the customer is always right. You know what I mean? I think if the customer is happy, then that's like everything to us.
We offer a year warranty. Like I said, we'll just send a new one. Or if they don't like it, I mean, if someone doesn't like something, I don't want them to spend their good earned money on something that they're not happy with. So just, email us. We'll refund, replace it. But I mean, when you're making thousands of pieces, I mean, there might be a faulty zipper. It's just, unfortunately, it's going to happen. It sucks when it's yours. I mean, if it was mine, I would be bummed too. But, we try to just replace it as soon as we can. And
yeah,
keep people happy.
and we just tell our customers order with confidence. We're people just like you who don't like bad customer service, just like you. We'll take care of it.
I mean, that's how I feel a lot too. And when I get these messages, or we all share the same accounts for Cycling Fashion Week, and I kind of think like, these companies are producing a lot of stuff. Things go wrong. I sort of don't. I mean, again, I don't know. Sometimes people feel distant from certain brands. You guys are small, only 2 people. I know you have your designers, so hopefully people can feel a little more connected to contacting you. So maybe feel a little step back. But indicting an entire brand because you had one piece of kit that fell apart a little earlier than you thought, or something that you didn't expect, always just seemed wild to me. And especially because if you say like, oh, it always becomes this thing where like they're almost mad if you say, because like I said, a lot of times we get stuff and we'll say, oh no, we've had, that kit, that company sent us some stuff, or we bought that stuff and we've actually really enjoyed it. And it's like, we're liars, right? Like, oh, like, is it because they sent it to you or something? And you're like, no, we don't, we don't ask for the kit. Like, we get it. We'll say bad stuff, or not bad, we'll say our truth about it. And you're going to say like, did you contact them? Did you say, like, again, you said if maybe they don't like heavy pedal, they don't want anymore, but you give them money back. Maybe you just say that obviously there's something faulty and we can replace it. Like, I sort of, for our listeners out there, if you get something and it isn't, seems like there's a quality assurance, quality control issue, contact the brand and just tell them this has gone wrong. Is this something that I should have expected at this point in my ownership of it?
We give you permission that after this comes out, you can forward those complaints to us. We'll take care of them.
After this comes out and stuff like that, someone will write, because it usually happens after we talk about a brand or interview, right? Because we only interview people we like. So usually we speak highly of them. And then that means that we're selling them. And then we're actually idiots. The stuff they have is not as good as it used to be, or I had this fault or whatever. It's funny and entertaining for us. But I mean, I think from a consumer perspective, I think people have to learn to customer service. I think a lot of these brands want to do that.
On a bit of a related note, I did want to ask you a bit about your like how you go about your manufacturing. It's made in China, I think, but using different fabrics, and just wondering how you've gone about like picking who you work with and choosing like the manufacturers you want to work with and that kind of thing.
We do produce in China. Everything's produced in China currently. We have looked into producing in Italy and certain places like that. But just getting the quality plus the ability to have like a good price point. This is just where we're at in the stage of our business right now. Kind of like how we talk about how like, well, these are the designs we're doing right now because this is what, you know, we're into right now. It's kind of like, this is where we're producing right now because this is what we know. If a US producer is listening to this podcast and you're like, you know, let's talk, like, contact us. We'd love to talk to you, you know. Same goes for any other apparel producer anywhere in the world. But yeah, we work with two different factories right now. We get all these like fabric samples and things like that from them, or we might get stuff from like a MIDI or other companies like that, and then we just request what we want from them, and they'll either give us what we requested or send us back options that are similar fabrics inside of that range that we can also look at, that might not be, they're just as good as fabrics but maybe not just at the price point because of the brand name of the fabric. So we go to like pretty good extents to look all that kind of stuff over with our factories and make our decisions from there.
Then it's like a whole process of just sampling everything. It can take upwards of to a year just to get the jersey down right or the bib down right, because it's like, okay, well, now we want to change this on it, and then you got to sample, and then all right, let's make this different, let's make that different, sample again. It can take a good amount of time, and like, you know, having a factory that you can work closely with, that, and we've been with these factories for, you know, 8+ years, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we have a good working relationship. I'm on Skype every night, you know, just working away.
I think that's sort of an interesting thing a lot where people talk about, you know, manufacturing. I mean, in anything, but let's sort of, you know, stick to the cycling world. And places really matter to people's minds, right? It was manufactured, it was made in Italy, it was made in the US, it was made in China, and sort of like what that means. But listen, I wouldn't have known a lot of this until we sort of got into this podcast and sort of the understanding of how the manufacturing works a little bit better. And that, yes, even though it's made in China versus Italy, like, it's not like there's one Chinese fabric and one Italian fabric. Like, you still have options. You still can, you know, you still get to sample, you still get sample cuts. Like, there seems to be, you know, there's a bit of a stigma around sort of where it's made, or a lore around where it's made, with kind of this weird assumption that the location of its manufacturing is like, you know, automatically the quality in what it is. Whereas, you know, I think it's good for our listeners, you know, who obviously are listening to this for fun, but maybe a little bit of information that, yeah, you can manufacture in China, and it's not like there's one Chinese textile that you have to use, and that's what you're going to use. And they have one, you know, cut pattern. And if you get in Italy, you get there, like, you get to go, you know, the manufacturers, you guys, you're going to get samples. You're going to be able to choose what fabrics you want. You're going to be able to choose them at different price points. You're going to be able to choose the patterns, or I don't know if you guys supply the patterns. You know, I know there's sort of a varying way companies do it based on their size, but it is an interesting sort of thing. I think in cycling, probably more so than a lot of stuff, like the place matters so much to people. Right. I mean, Cask, and I love Cask helmets, but they put made in Italy, or I think Italy made for some reason, on their strap. Right. Like, you know, and they're an Italian company, so I know they're proud of that, but it's kind of this thing where sometimes there's a bit of a stigma, but it doesn't mean you can't get great quality out of sort of places all over the world if you're working with the right factories and the manufacturers taking their time and their care.
Yeah.
I think if you walk into any of those factories, whether in China or Italy, they're going to be using like Juki sewing machines, the exact same sewing machine, the same finishers, all that kind of stuff, you know? So
these factories, they have everything you could possibly want. Every fabric, every elastic, every chamois that you could possibly want. They have everything. Like, and some of the US manufacturers that we've actually talked to, they're like, we have 3 fabrics, because they have to buy all these giant rolls of fabric, and they have to either get it from China or they have to get it from Italy. And, you know, to buy these giant rolls of fabric, it costs a lot of money. So it's like your options are almost a little bit limited.
I feel like we've always kind of taken the position it's just like, we're just more interested in kit that rides well and is good quality. Like,
and we're not anti made in America or anything like that. If we had the opportunity in a factory, that would work with us. But a lot of it comes down to price points. Like, we can't all of a sudden be like, oh, and our jersey costs, you know, twice as much. And, you know, and also when our price points jump up, quality might not even be reflective of that. So
alienate our customer base. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've sort of talked about it or touched on this a few different times. You talked a lot about price points, and even your higher end stuff is still, you know, comparatively not in the scheme of cycling kit that expensive. So is accessibility for cyclists something that's important to Heavy Pedal? Is that something you're always keeping in mind, like with whether it's with that $100 kit you mentioned, or still having your higher end stuff be relatively affordable? Is that something that's important to you guys?
Yeah, it's important to us. It's important to me, and I think Jesse would share the same sentiment. Just because I come from a low income family, the way I was brought up was like my mom got us food from food banks and things like that. Who would I be to then turn around and be like, I created this cycling apparel company and I have $300 bibs? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't really fit with like the younger version of me. And the person that I was growing up. So I love accessibility. We've all been to a bike shop where like, the person working at the bike shop was a jerk to us when we were getting started. And, there's like this elitist thing that happens with cycling, even between cyclists. We'd love to end the stigma of all that and be able to offer something for everyone and never really price gouge. You can put our bibs against anybody's bibs out there for performance and comfortability and durability. And I guarantee you we would rank way up there with the really super expensive stuff. And our price point is still very reasonable.
Well, I mean, that's a curiosity even within, like you're talking about the kit and putting your bibs up against the higher price point. Like I feel like incrementally we're seeing the, bibs of the I don't want to say like bigger brand, like they're bigger than you, but major brands, because it's still all fairly niche, right? It seems like I feel like a couple years ago, it's like a kit, it was $210, and then it's $270, and then it's $300, and now it's $350, and like, what I mean, I know there's other factors to cost in manufacturing and the economy and stuff, but it's like, what are you getting? Sometimes when I see those prices, I think like, what really am I getting for this? Like, at what point are they just charging it because they can, right? At what point are some of these brands just going, someone's going to buy this for that price? It's not even different than the thing 2 years ago that was, this bib, a similar bib was $280 2 years ago. We're doing $350 this year with the new release. It's the same thing, but someone's going to buy it, because that's kind of how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you're not actually getting value for your money. You're just buying. You just think it's better because it's more expensive. I don't know.
I mean, let's be clear. There's cyclists out there who need to wear the newest and greatest $400 bibs just so that their friends see them wearing that. You know what I mean? And they're like, it's like a status symbol for some.
Everyone in Girona.
Yeah, it's status symbol. Scottsdale, Arizona is the same way. And, it'd be great if all those people supported local Heavy Pedal. But yeah, you'll see them riding around in very expensive stuff. And I get it,
Oh, I mean, I own lots of expensive kit too. Not all of it was given to us on this podcast. We sort of glossed over this question at the beginning just because we kind of dove right into the kit itself. We were hoping to hear you guys talk a bit about the origin of the brand itself. Like, I feel like we've been getting a bit of an idea of where you're now, but we'd like to know how Heavy Pedal originally started and how you got to be, I think you said something like 12 years making kit, or
8 years making kit. I think they're about
is.
12 years old. I can answer.
Tony's going to answer for you.
I'm gonna answer the start just because I had that. We had a pre-interview just to sort of talk about the brand, and I had to once, like, the name always sounded sort of more familiar than just the sort of more recent Instagram I saw. And then Terrence talked about the blog he started. I realized that was one of my in Web 1, right before Web 2, and we all went into the little bubble of Web 2 and Instagram, where you had to go to each website. I had bookmark tags on my Safari browser. So when I would get up, I would look at different blogs, cycling related, when I was getting into it, when I was in my kind of fixed gear days, and Heavy Pedal was one of them. And it took me a second, but it dawned on me and realized I used to sort of look at that and read that, probably pretty much daily. That's where I'm going to start for Terrence, is that it started out as a blog, a fixed gear blog. And then Terrence, you take the rest away.
In the fixed gear days, I was a sponsored rider, sponsored by a company, and one of the stipulations of the sponsorship was that I had to have a blog and talk about the product. I was on a ride one day with a bunch of people. I could have swore I heard someone say Heavy Pedal, and I just loved the name. And I asked, I'm like, "Did you say Heavy Pedal? Did you?" Like, I'm on the ride, like going up and down the group, asking like, "Who said that?" Because I just thought I heard it. no one claimed to have said the words, but I was just like, that's what I'm going to call the blog. Like, I love the way that sounds because it's like heavy metal and heavy pedal, and like, the bikes are made of like, steel and all this kind of stuff, fixed gear track bikes and stuff like that. So I thought it was a really cool like play on words. So yeah, I decided to call the blog Heavy Pedal. I was in design school at that time. I think 2009. Does that number sound correct to you?
So
Yeah, somewhere around 2009. And it was like a school project to make a website and all this kind of stuff. So my friend Victor created the logo. This other guy named Chris was working on the website at the time because that was his major. Victor's major was graphic design. And then so we had the blog up. We started writing about fixed gear stuff, and Tony started reading it.
Yep.
And then people loved the logo that we had at the top because it looked like a scattering of stickers. So people asked us like, "Is that a sticker at the top of your website?" They would always write into to us. We were like, "Well, let's make some stickers, and while we're at it, let's make some T-shirts." So we spent like $300, made some stickers and T-shirts, and then they sold out like the same day that we released them. We had like a WordPress website and then like a big cartel shopping situation going on. Then I realized like, oh, there's like something here, like people are interested, and as time went on, we make some different T-shirts, but then like I started getting into cycling a little bit more. Everybody was like starting to go from like T-shirt and Dickies and like Vans to like cycling kits. Road biking was kind of taking off towards the end of the fixed gear thing, so we started making cycling jerseys and bibs, and we were doing that for a little while. Then we started to make bikes. We made the Zephyr, the Passage, and a bike called the Axiom. During that time, I actually was in a lawsuit. So we were in a lawsuit for an entire year where we had to stop sales on the website. We had to shut everything down. We couldn't have any kind of sales coming through the website. So during that time, like I had to go and get a different job so I could make sure that everybody could be paid, because I wanted to keep the team around everybody that was helping while we couldn't make sales. Mm-hmm. Right. So once we got out of the lawsuit, which we ended up being told that we would win the lawsuit, but it doesn't really go like that. They go like, the judge goes, Terrence is going to win this lawsuit. You guys are going to have to continue to fight unless you guys come to some kind of terms and strike some kind of deal. So we end up having to strike a deal. So I don't necessarily win the lawsuit, but I end up okay. And then the company that attempted to sue us went bankrupt the following year. And we had our best year ever that year. So that felt really good. But making bikes was a humongous pain in the butt because
it's a headache.
It was a headache. You had to order the bikes. We were pre-selling them so that we could kind of like offset the overall cost of like container shipping and buying in bulk and stuff like that. And around the time that we were getting started in the bikes, we were having tons of strikes at the ports in the United States. So we were selling all these bikes pre-sale. They were at the port, but we couldn't get them. Our customers were mad. It was just a really big headache. And I think if you're gonna like import bikes, you probably really need to super be into like importing, you know what I mean? Like just import export kind of stuff, which like I was kind of winging it, but cycling apparel is always easy because we order in such a bulk that it can still come on an airplane, which was super easy. So we pivoted to apparel. In time we dropped the blog because it's a lot to keep up with, and then we just ended up becoming a product and really just focusing on Heavy Pedal as a cycling apparel brand.
And also just not this niche fixed gear company, like in getting into gravel, getting into road and, mountain bike. And, we didn't want to just be this like, oh, we're only this one thing. And I would say that probably took like 3 years to break that stigma. Because I would even have a lot of like roadie cyclists in Phoenix at the group rides. They're like, oh, Heavy Pedal, that's that fixie brand. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of people didn't want to buy from us because they thought like, oh, that's just that fixed gear company. So it took a couple years and a lot of like deliberate work to try to like break that stigma. We want to just be apparel. Like anyone can wear a jersey. Anyone can wear a t-shirt, a hat.
Well, I mean, our good friend Dustin Klein would say that a bike is just a tool. And so whether you're riding a fixed bike, a gravel, a road, a mountain bike, we're all the same. We're all just riding bikes. So nothing wrong with staying true to the fixed gear roots, but everyone should know that, they could, if they're a roadie, they can wear Heavy Pedal. If they're a mountain biker, they can wear Heavy Pedal. I don't know if you guys agree. Can an e-biker wear Heavy Pedal? Are we okay with an e-biker wearing Heavy Pedal?
Sure, man. If you're on two wheels, let's do it.
I think if you're on a motorcycle, I don't know if Lycra is the best choice. two wheels that are not powered with a combustion engine.
What's next for heavy pedal moving forward? I know you recently did a collaboration with Liquid Death, the I think they call themselves Mountain Water, and you've done some with like I think Pit Viper sunglasses in the past. Like, is that something you're going to do more of, or is there other things you have planned for the future? Now I'm answering the question for you. We're just curious of sort of what's next for the brand.
We've done things that we can't talk about as well, just for non-disclosure agreements, which I think those are like bigger projects and pretty cool. But some things that we do have coming up is we're going to do the volume 3 of the Liquid Death, so the collaboration will continue on. We have another big partnership with Pit Viper that's going to continue.
And then I would say probably we have a lot of really cool artist collaborations that are, some have already been designed, some are half designed, some are just being started. I think like the artist collabs are a lot of fun just because it brings in like this new, fresh perspective that we might not normally do. So, and then I mean, Terrence too, we just enjoy like the hunt of like trying to find a designer that's has nothing to do with cycling, but you're like, oh, I think their artwork would translate really well. It'd be super different. No one else has anything like it, but I think still make a really cool cycling jersey. And then I'll send over the profile to Terrence, and then sometimes he'll just laugh at me and he's like, I don't see this at all. This is terrible. And then sometimes we're like, oh yeah, we immediately are like, yeah, message this person. And then sometimes they're like, oh, we'll do it, but it's going to be $10,000 for a jersey design. Then we're like, all right, well, thanks for your time. It's a lot of fun on our end. And then also, we do a lot of custom work for different teams, coffee shops, stores, bicycle clubs, breweries. I mean, so those are always like really fun projects too, because then you get to get completely out of your element. You're like, all right, how do we make your coffee shop or your cycling shop? How do we make a shop kit that like represents you and what you're doing? So then sometimes we get to do really cool things that we normally wouldn't do ourselves that way.
Yeah, I was really excited with the custom thing. And then you guys said you used to do a 5 kit minimum, which would have been perfect for CFW because with our guest hosts, Skylar and Alex, were 5. And now you do a 10 kit minimum. Now, I think we've been clear here at Cycling Fashion Week. We aren't here to make any money off of this thing. We don't want to sell people stuff. We're never going to have a Patreon or ask for sponsorship money. So it's out of the question for us to sell something. But I guess I'm thinking maybe if we have like 5 listeners that are just so obsessed with Cycling Fashion Week, we'll do a 10 kit order with you guys in the custom and get that minimum and get a heavy pedal Cycling Fashion Week kit. Yeah. Maybe down the pipeline, but maybe I'm putting that out in the ether. Maybe we have some super fans. I don't, fan seems like a weird word. The listeners, super listeners who would say I would wear a CFW kit, but we'll never produce one for mass sale. But we could think of something.
That was Tony's way of asking you about your custom program.
So let me tell you the situation, how we would make that happen. So basically, to make your amazing Cycling Fashion Week cycling jersey or kit, or if you wanted wind vests, skin suits, any products, anything that we make, we do custom. So basically, for like a situation for like what you're doing, you'd come to us, you're like, hey, I got this idea, I really want to make something, I have a good following. There's a couple different ways we could do it. We could design something for you custom, and then show you the design, you approve it, and then you would order bulk from us, and then it would be up to you to distribute. But another way, and what most people like to do, is we would then, still design, get everything ready, and then we would create a web store for you. So then you could just promote it. It costs you $0. It's not going to cost you a penny. You can just tell all your followers like, hey, check out this cool jersey we're selling. Here's the link. People go to the link, they go to our store, they order it. We do like a 2-week pre-order. Then we handle all the manufacturing, shipping, customer service. Once everything arrives, we would ship everything to them. And then you'd also have 2 options. You're like, do I just want everyone to have these for the cheapest price possible? And we would give you the bulk price and everyone could order it for like, $60 a jersey or whatever. Or, being a big capitalist and wanting to make a whole lot of money from your podcast, people would order it at full price, and then we would cut you a check at the end for all the profits.
I'm changing my mind, Tony. I want to make lots of profits and money.
Yeah, you want to make lots of money off this podcast? Yeah. You want to have another Patreon, another blog with a I don't know if Patreon's still going. I don't know what people use. OnlyFans.
Warren wants some $400 bibs.
Yeah. Just for you, just for Cycling Fashion Week, we are going to sell our bibs for $400.
Yeah.
See,
sorry.
that's perfect. That's what we
Yeah.
need. It's got to be more expensive than it needs to be. So it'll be
And you know what? Let's make the jersey $310.
Mhm.
perfect.
Same jersey we normally make. Nothing different.
Exactly.
A $700 kit. I love it.
And you'll deal with Jesse directly. It'll be Jesse. So if you feel like since Jesse's on a podcast, he's famous, you'll be talking to a famous person. We also produce stuff white label that no one knows that Heavy Pedal makes it. So it's possible that some people could have something in their closet already that we made. It just says a different brand's logos on it.
Who made this Cancer Ride jersey?
Trust me, it wasn't Heavy Pedal by the look of those Cancer Ride jerseys.
Oh, don't Canal Cancer Rides, Tony.
I won't Canal Cancer Rides, but I do want to say that Warren and I did one in the Toronto area, and my whatever, I don't know who made the jersey, so I can't canal them, but the jersey was ripped by the end of my ride. Like they give you one, like, you know, they give you one so everyone looks the same or whatever. And it actually wasn't, it was like, the design was nice. I thought, oh, that's not that bad. And then by the end of and I didn't crash or anything. I don't even know how it ripped. It might have been me putting something in my pocket, but it was like ripped by the like 100th K. By the time I got back, I like one of the pockets was like falling off. I was like,
I know who made it. I'm not
no.
gonna...
Again, and like we talked about, if I really wanted to deal with it, I wouldn't just complain on my popular podcast. I would contact them and say there was an issue. Now, because it was kind of a free jersey and wasn't something I'd probably wear anyways, we just let it pass.
Tony, I think that's important though, because like we've been trying to get an account for a long time of someone that we work with to make their like actual main jerseys, you know.
Now we want to move on to the rapid fire section of this interview, if you guys are good with that.
Let's do it.
Okay. Tea, coffee, or liquid death?
Liquid death.
Coffee. Going coffee. You can make coffee with liquid death, but you can't make liquid death with coffee.
Dang.
Oh.
Road or gravel?
Or fixed.
I'm gonna go road in my old age. I don't know if I can ride a fixed gear for very long.
I want to say gravel, but I feel it's kind of like having dessert. You don't get to do it that often, so it's a little bit more of a treat. But every day, like I would say road.
Is there a lot of gravel out in Arizona out of curiosity? Because in Toronto, we have to, if we want to do gravel, we got to drive somewhere.
There's some great places, especially like so Phoenix is just super flat, but then it's just surrounded by mountains.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of open desert trails. And I mean, if you go to our Instagram, most of our photo shoots are all in Arizona.
Carbon, steel, aluminum, or titanium?
Since I'm not at my fighting weight, I like carbon, so that I'm just a little lighter, you know? Yeah, I'm going to go carbon.
Steel for a track bike, carbon for a road bike, and titanium if anyone wants to send me one.
Yeah.
That's us too, just so everyone knows.
It's only four titanium bikes is all we need to get this.
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
Next year.
We'll talk about we'll talk about you on the podcast. Maybe you'll post some photos riding the titanium bike. Well, they'll get their press first. We're worth it. So I also want to know why Warren changed the wording of this next question.
Did I?
Well, because we used to say white or black shoes, and then you said favorite color shoes. Are we just trying to put it out there? I'm going to go with the new stuff. Favorite color shoes.
White.
This again used to say white or black socks, but now we're giving the world's our guest oyster now, so they don't have to choose white or black. They can choose any favorite color socks.
You're going to be disappointed with us. White.
Roadie scum white all the way.
We're never disappointed with white shoes, white socks. In our recent new Instagram sort of segment, the Spandex Sundays, I noticed that every single person who submitted, regardless of what their kid was, had white shoes, white socks on.
It's pro. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite color kit, whether it's, or your favorite design maybe, whether it's yours or just a general color?
My favorite thing right now is I'm sure you can find it on our Instagram, but it's the Bloom jersey with the brown coffee bibs. Something about that whole combination. And I'm just proud when I see that.
I'm always a sucker for all black, but I have been trying to wear more bright and colorful jerseys as well.
Jesse's murdered out when he's on the road.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's going to a funeral.
I still have some all black just when I'm feeling that way. When that mood strikes me, because that's how we dress for mood.
And what about the best place you've ever ridden? And you can say Arizona, because we hear it's pretty good.
It's pretty good, but just one of my favorite times on the bike. I did that that ride called Ragbri. I think it's through like Iowa or something like that. The Register's annual Ragbri. It's like a multi-day ride, and then they like take your tent to the next location and set them all out. And there's like hundreds, probably thousands of people on the ride. It was just really cool because you got to ride through very small towns. You got to help like the economy in those areas because there's a huge influx of people. It was just really cool. That was my favorite ride I've ever done.
And then I'm going to go with Costa Rica with the Puerto Vida Foundation. And it was like a 5 day bike ride, just all in the mountains. Every day was like, it might be like 50 miles, but it's like 10,000 feet of climbing. Everything there is just straight up, straight down. And you got to ride with all these locals. And we actually made cycling jerseys for the club down there. So that was a pretty cool thing. And it's like a charity thing. So we bring down equipment and all that kind of stuff. But the riding was just incredible.
Also, shout out AIDS Life Cycle because
Yeah.
Jesse does that every year.
Yeah.
Too.
Also, AIDS Life Cycle, that's like right behind it. That's San Francisco to Los Angeles. This will be my 6th year riding in it.
I think maybe I would be more into charity rides if I lived in the States. I mean, I guess you're saying Costa Rica, but like everything sounds so much more interesting. Like San Francisco to LA ride. I'd like to do that instead of like another loop of cottage country Ontario. So I mean, not our fault, you know. Not
2 days to Niagara Falls.
Yeah, not the Canadian charity rides just start going to the States, but it's definitely, I never feel like compelled by the actual ride. I mean, I've done some charity rides for cancer because it's, you know, I think something that hits close to home with some family stuff. But
I used to work for them too.
Yeah, in terms of the actual like ride itself, I was like, I could do this on a Tuesday. It sounds a lot more interesting.
And I think your cottage rides sound more interesting to us.
Yeah. Oh my God,
it sounds awesome. Yeah.
So we have I would say it's our most famous segment. You know, it's really what people come for. It's called Into the Canal, and it's where we throw something of the cycling world. It can be anything really, just an opinion that you throw into Montreal's Lachine Canal to sort of forever be gone. I don't want this to exist. And now, because we're equal opportunity people, we wanted to have a positive side for those who aren't as negative as us, you know, the host of Cycling Fashion Week. We have what's called the Camillens, which is named after Camillens, the hardest climb in the world, which is up the side of Montreal's Mount Royal. What would you say, Warren? It's almost a 4-minute climb? 5-minute climb? I forget how long.
For us, it's more like 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's a hard climb, though. Really hard. Most people can't do it. So anyways, yeah, we want to give our guests the opportunity to either throw something into the canal, give a Camillens, or do both. What do you guys got for us?
I mean, I think the Canal is the $350 cycling bib.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of those. You don't need it.
I would like to throw the rude bike shop worker to the new cyclist. Throw them in the canal too.
Yeah, I have a story about that where I was kind of coming back from some time off cycling, and my road bike was definitely sort of at the end of its life, and I was not working that much at the time, and I was a little tight on budget, but not actually as tight as I told them. Anyways, I walked into a shop, I saw a bike, and I said, you know, there's my budget. Oh, I like this. They said, oh, it's not built. I went to test ride it. Oh, it's not built up. Can you come back tomorrow? We'll build it. I came back again. It's not built up. Can you come back tomorrow? I'll build it. And they just were just like so scoffed at me, right? I was really super willing to spend my money. You know, I just wanted to fight, you know, one time around the block just to make sure that I felt comfortable. They didn't do it. I went to another shop. They were much, much friendlier to me. And then eventually I did get some money to buy, I think most people in the world would consider quite an expensive bike. And I made sure to sort of, you know, not buy from that previous shop just because the guy wouldn't spend, you know, 5 minutes being nice to me when I was trying to give him money. I was actively trying. You didn't have to sell me on anything. I told him the budget, and then they did have a little bit more expensive bike already built. And I kind of was like, well, you know, what am I going to get for my extra few $100s here? And the guy was just like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm making this the easiest upsale of your life. You tell me that I'll go 5 kilometers faster and lie to me, and I'll buy this more expensive bike. But the guy was so uninterested because my price point was more in like the couple thousand range than the 10,000 that he was just like, I was like, all right, screw people. And I don't think I've ever shopped. The shop's in my neighborhood, like blocks away from me. And I haven't bought a single thing from them since then. And now I'm a world famous podcaster. I won't name them because that's just a bit rude, but I'm stealing your Canal Camillens time, but I like to tell stories.
The Camillens, is that a good thing? Is that what that is? I didn't.
That's a good thing. That's something you like.
I'd say group rides. Go on as many group rides, even if it's not like a big established group ride. Just call some friends, get together, and go out on the weekend. Go out on the evening, in the morning, just whenever your friends are available. I mean, because that's like why we cycle. It's all community, you know.
Yep.
So like, why even ride your bike if you can't do it with the people you like to hang out with?
Do the Camillien to people like starting stuff, like starting a weekly ride, or trying to get people involved, because it takes that person to gain the momentum to get more people on bikes. So Camillien to them.
And give a little wave if you see someone else riding their bike. It's not that hard.
Oh yeah,
Agreed.
agreed.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Those are both solid Canals and Camillens that I think we support. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on Cycling Fashion Week, Terrence and Jesse. It was great to hear more about heavy pedal. We're trying to bring some light to some of the smaller brands out there as well, and not just talk about $400 bibs. Though I think we did a bit. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hey, what are you doing? I don't know, I'm just fucking tossing bikes in the river, bro.
Okay, next segment, flagship segment, Into the Canal, where we throw something that we don't like from the world of cycling or cycling fashion into Montreal's La Chine Canal. Got to start thinking, though, to throw stuff in that Girona River on top of that bridge where all the influencers are. But anyway, for the time being, it'll remain the canal. Can also have a Camillens to really commend something that we appreciate from the world of cycling or cycling fashion. If we feel that we're being too negative, it's always a nice option to have. Okay, who wants to start this week with a Canal or a Camillens?
I got a Canal. Well, first off, I'd love to throw just the idea of an influencer being like a full-time job into the Canal. Every time I say the word influencer, I cringe myself. And even though I've now said it twice in the last 10 seconds, I just want to like stop saying it and stop thinking about them for a little while. And just, no shame to people who enjoy photography while they ride their bike. But that thing, I'm going to kind of move on. I need like a mental break. So my true Canal for this episode is bike shops letting you leave like that. Because I'm seeing people out there, they've got expensive bikes, right? I'm not talking your ride, your commuter, thing like that. This thing does not fit. It's the wrong size. It's got 18 spacers on the steer tube. The seat's got half an inch up from the top tube. They're out there, $4,000, $5,000 bike, Specialized, BMC, all these things. Flat pedal shoes, no clipless, no jersey, no bibs, helmet with visor, no sunglasses. And not only, it's an atrocious thing to have the rest of the cycling world see you. But I'm thinking from the benefit of the shop, right? Everyone's saying the little bike, the local bike shop is dying. Where's the upsell, right? You've got someone in there. You've already reeled them in with a bike that is way more than they need to spend. Somehow you suckered them into spending $5,000 when they should have an old 92 Peugeot 10-speed. So you've reeled them into a carbon Specialized with an Altegra on it. Can't you just sell? What's another few $100 on some kit, a pair of shoes, clipless? I'm not saying it has to be top of the line. I'm not saying it has to be the best stuff. But just say, listen, you are going $5,000 into this bike. You might as well have these shoes and these pedals. That's another $400, whatever. So yeah, I'm throwing bike shops essentially in the Canal for first off, get them the bike fit. When they come in, that should be supplied, or whatever, upsell them. Say, you're buying this bike for $150, we do a bike fit, and just tell them how great, and it'll make their riding experience amazing. When really it's for me as an observer of these other cyclists to not see just the most atrocious fitting bikes with just, essentially a cruiser, a beach cruiser comfort on a road bike is ridiculous. And then get them in there, sell them the kit, sell it, sell, ABC.
Always be closing. Question for you, do we think bike shops, and I don't want to speak ill of bike shops. I think they serve a great purpose in our communities. They provide mechanical services. They can be a sort of a meeting point for the cycling community as well. So I love bike shops, believe in bike shops, support your local bike shop. However, do we think that there's some bike shops out there that are legitimately selling bikes to people that don't fit them and that they know don't fit them just because they want to move it off their inventory?
Yes. When I bought my first road bike, I had an interesting experience where the first shop I went to wouldn't sell me the bike because they were convinced it was too small for me. The size they had, it was like a size 56 or something, and they said it was too small and I needed 58, and they were out of stock. So they're like, you know what, we really don't want to.
You do not need a 58.
Yeah.
No, I know I don't. So here's where I'm going: is they wouldn't sell me a 56. So me not really knowing what I was doing, I'd only been riding like commuter bike my whole life. I was like, oh, okay, I'll look for a 58. And I found another one, another shop not too far away. They sold me a 58 without hesitation. They gave me a quote unquote fit, which was really to just like put my pedals on the bike and maybe take out a spacer because it was propped up pretty high. Anyway, I rode that bike for, God, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And
That was your CAD, right?
yeah, it was definitely too big for me.
Way
It
too
wasn't
big.
so big that I couldn't ride it, obviously, but I was higher up. I mean, the CAD's fairly aggressive, but I was higher up. I think the bars were even wider than I needed. Like, I started to adjust things as I realized it wasn't quite the right fit for me, but my first bike fully was not the right size for me. But it was funny because one shop was convinced I needed a bigger one, and I think it's mainly they were worried about selling me a really aggressive racy position. Like, I was like, this feels fine, I'll buy it. And they're like, no, we think you should do a 58. And it's funny, if I bought that 56, maybe I'd still be riding it.
I do think that's a lot of bike shops lean large on size in general.
Sure.
Like, they'll generally go bigger size. They don't understand that smaller frame with longer stem, higher seat post is just more pro.
I didn't realize my sizing because I'm tall, but I have kind of interesting body proportions. I want to give a shout out to a shop just up the street from where I live, and one that is a dealer of our good friend David's Chapter 3 brand, Racer Sportif in Bloor West Village. I think they also have an Oakville. I also, as a tall guy, was always sort of sold a 58, and it made sense to everyone. It still makes sense to people when they see me. They think I'm supposed to ride a 58. And so I had a 58 as my first road bike. And again, it kind of fit me, but it always felt like a little bit off. And I was buying a new road bike, and I just thought it was 58, right? Someone tells you, you're 6'2", 6'3", you got to have a 58, maybe even bigger and stuff. And I walked into Racers and I said to them, I was looking for not something too expensive. I was kind of coming back into the sport after a year or two off, and my old bike had sort of, done its time. And so I kind of said, yeah, I'm looking for this. You have anything at 58? And the guy looked at me, and again, kudos to him. He said, you're not a 58. And I said, what are you talking about? Right? Like, that's what everyone's told me. He said, you're like a 56 at max. You've got long legs, but like a short torso and not that long arms. Like, you're going to be stretched out. You just jack up the seat. So he sold me a 56 on a, I think it was a Scott Speedster 105 something. Nice bike actually for the price, and really did me well until I got my other bike. But then subsequently, when I bought new bikes, obviously the Marinoni, just to be repetitive, is custom made, but the Cat X, the 56 and stuff, I realized like I just wasn't told they would. And I don't think the shops were trying to misguide me. I think they just didn't have the knowledge. They say, how tall are you? 6'2". That's a tall person's bike, or getting sort of towards it. But my body proportions meant that I just have a jacked up seat, and I don't need a long top tube. So I think I'm throwing them in the canal, but maybe also I've got to throw them in the canal for their lack of understanding of how bikes are supposed to fit the individual.
I think that's part of the problem, and why a lot of people end up out there riding what you're describing, because most bike shops don't have a real quote unquote fitter, and they advertise and they sell a fit, but it's usually just really a sizing to
putting your pedals on.
Yeah, put your pedals on, adjust your saddle. A real bike fit like that all three of us have had to get our custom bikes is not what most bike shops are offering, So I think they're just selling stuff and doing their best to size it. And, I do want to say that I think there are probably some customers who are like, just like, no, I want this. I'm telling you, this is what I want. And they're probably ignoring good advice from it, because there could be somebody who went to, say, a Racer Sportif. It's like, no, I'm a 58. Sell me that. And they might sell it anyway. So it's hard to know, but I think the reality is I think most bike shops out there don't have real fitters on staff. They have teenagers and mechanics.
It's not a great excuse with the internet now, right? Like again, you're not going to get that professional fitting that, Blacksmith offers, or, Marinoni itself offers, or some of these more boutique shops. But they should be able to sort of do enough research if you're going to offer any type of bike fit or just be a bike shop that's selling road bikes to kind of understand like what sort of works and like what it really means. Because I think it's also a problem with the sizing of a bike, right? The sizing is just based on the top tube length. So you're 54, 56, 58, 55, 61 or whatever. Like there's so many other factors to the size of a bike, but for some reason, like that's our size.
Okay, hear me out. An AI chatbot that knows all the fits and the sizes of every bike company. ChatGPT for bike fits. You go to bikegpt.com and you ask, "Hey, I want to buy, some Dentist Cervelo expensive S5, S3, whatever it's called, with that ugly stem in the front. I want to buy this. I'm 5'11". My legs are that long, my arms are, and it tells you need to get a 55 centimeter bike and lift the seat post. Excellent. That would be a killer thing.
Oh, that would be absolutely amazing.
I mean, I think you can do that with Chat GPT right now. Actually, let's find out. Give me one sec. Okay, so I definitely think you're onto something because Chat GPT is basically doing exactly what we're criticizing bike shops for. If any of our listeners have used it, you basically know it just consolidates all of this information and just gives you it's kind of like GCN, to be honest, like the GCN show. It's just like they'll never commit to an opinion. It's like, here's all the information. You could go this way or you could go that way.
There are great options either way.
Yeah, that's pretty much my experience with Chat GPT.
Middle of the road Chat GPT.
105 is a great group set, but if you have the money, Ace is premium.
Yeah.
GCN GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chat GCN?
Yeah, there you go. That's better. Anyway, it basically just said, based on I put in my height of 6 foot, it's for someone who's 6 foot tall, a bike with a frame size of around 56 to 58 centimeters should be a good starting point. But it does say, keep in mind, this is a rough estimate and it's crucial to consider other factors like inseam, torso, blah, 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 blah.
It's like ChatGPT is afraid of getting sued almost.
ChatGPT is like the anti-cycling fashion. Like we have hard takes and we don't worry about facts. And ChatGPT is just soft. You could do this, you could do that, maybe this, that, and the other.
We should ask ChatGPT, what's the best global destination for bike influencers?
We're not going to have a whole ChatGPT episode.
Girona is a great destination, but you might prefer Mallorca.
Yeah.
Nobody steal the Bike GPT thing, because in between when we're recording this and when the episode comes live, we're going to have trademarked that idea.
Yeah.
So.
We have no coding skills whatsoever.
CFWGPT.com. Okay, I'm going to go with my Canal. Spring is here. It's beautiful out there. Little flowers all over the place. It's getting green. It's getting sunny. And the summer is coming. And this is the season that people take bike trips, that they go away. They go somewhere on vacation. Some people, the influencers, will all fly to Girona, but other people will go with their cars. They'll go camping. They'll bring their gravel bikes or whatever it is. I have a take on bike racks for your car. I am going to Canal bike racks that go in the back of your car, and I'm going to Camillens bike racks that go on the roof of your car. It is just so much more pro to have a bike rack on the roof of your car than to have it in the back of your car. I don't know why. It's just ugly in the back of your car. And I always get worried that someone kind of rear ends you and you get bumped, and then your bike gets trashed and your expensive carbon wheels get trashed. And on top of your bike, it's just a lot more like cars in the Pro Tour. It just looks a lot better. So if you have a bike rack that goes on the back of your car, you're in the Canal.
Well, you answered your own question, because the reason it looks better is because it's on the Pro Tour. And I would agree with you. It looks much better. And I mean, because it looks better, the risk is 100% worth it. But I have, there's many photos out there, and I know some stories personally of people forgetting about it and driving into an underground garage or a low,
No, that I don't believe that. I don't believe.
Yes. It happens. I mean, I don't think it's like common, but I mean, they're easy to sort of forget up there, but they do look way better. And I actually would say I've always felt they're like more stable whenever I've used them. Like there's just, I don't know if it's the ones on the back. I mean, if they're a trailer hitch one,
way more stable. Now on the top though, there's the ones that you remove the front wheel, that you literally kind of, attach it to your bike rack with the, either with the quick release or with the through axle. So these are very, very solid. Now there's the ones like they have in the Pro Tour where the front wheel is still on. And these ones actually, despite the fact that they're in the Pro Tour, they look a little more wobbly, I find, when the car turns or hits a bump or something. Like the bikes move a little bit. That makes me a bit nervous. But the ones that you attach with the through axle or the quick release, these ones are good.
I don't have much to add. I agree with Tony. Yes, the roof racks are much more aesthetically pleasing, but as somebody who owns a rear whatever bike
You're
rack,
in the Canal.
it's actually quite practical. Works really
But
well.
you also, in fairness to yourself,
But we're not about practicality here.
no, exactly. You bought that prior to owning your own car, like so it did make more sense because you knew you'd be sort of transferring as you rented or borrowed or whatever. But once you buy your own car, which you do have now, like then you got to go roof rack. I bought a car.
I'd go hitch rack myself.
That's a mountain bike thing, though. That's like what mountain bikers do. Like you let in
I
big
agree.
mountain bike into you. Like the hitch rack is the ultimate mountain bike. It's like the sign of the mountain bike. So now that I own a car, which is I think Warren and I got our cars about the same time, showing we're getting lazy and old buying cars. Yeah, I think I'll have to go for a roof rack as well. But in the meantime, I'll borrow your rear rack when I need to go somewhere. But if you get a hitch rack, you might as well put your Santa Cruz mountain bike on it.
The hitch rack is so craft beer, indie rock, mountain bike. Like
I will not participate in analyzing the psychology of a hitch rack. Listen, we go pretty deep on this, but I don't subscribe to that. I think a hitch rack is a perfectly practical.
Yeah, for
rack.
mountain bikers, for people who mountain bike, it's a perfectly practical thing. For elite road cyclists, it's a roof rack.
Okay, you know what's really pro and kind of a flex too is to leave your roof rack on even when your bike's not there, so that you lose out on aerodynamics and you spend more on gas on the highway. I find that's really pro and kind of a flex.
I would disagree with that. To me, that's like leaving your lights, your bike lights on your bike in the middle of the day.
I do that for safety reasons.
Now that I'm a dad, I'm a daytime running light guy. Just to throw that in there. But what do we think about the seersucker racks, especially if they're on like a Porsche Carrera or like a Porsche 911? I think they're called seersucker. Sorry, seersucker, not the material. Seersucker.
Seersucker is the preppy.
Yeah, no, I got that. See, I was looking at some bathing suits recently. The seersucker ones that are the suction cup or whatever, and then you see people because you can put that on any car, and sometimes you'll see. I don't know if anyone actually practically uses it. I've never seen it in the wild, but you'll see like photos on Instagram of people putting them on like a vintage Porsche Carrera, and it's just I think it's like the best thing ever.
That would make me very nervous.
Yeah, but if you've got your vintage Porsche Carrera with your seersucker and your number 22 bike on it, are you worried about any money?
If you have a vintage Porsche Carrera, presumably you've got another more utilitarian car that you can use for your bike trips. I mean, I don't think you're going on a bike trip with a Porsche Carrera.
Utilitarian, Alex. That sounds
that sounds practical. That's another word for practical.
So that's actually funny because I know I might have a reputation as kind of a snob as a result of this podcast, but as far as cars, I'm extremely utilitarian. I want the best all-wheel drive in the snow. I don't want anything flashy or fancy. I just want something that gets me from point A to point B that has a lot of cargo space and good all-wheel drive.
If you really felt that way, you'd drive a Honda Civic, which you don't.
I have a Subaru Outback, which unfortunately...
Which is pretty craft beer. It's very craft beer. It's very craft beer.
Pretty outdoorsy hitch rack. Although they have the integrated bars on the roof rack, so you kind of have to have a roof rack with the Subaru Outback. But I agree that it's pretty craft beer, Vermont, New Hampshire.
That's for going to the ski chalet and then drinking craft beer.
Our listeners thought you had a Volvo and they're just devastated.
I used to have a Volvo, but you know, for our listeners that are in New England, and they'll understand that for sure. So I have a place in the Eastern Townships on the border with Vermont. You drive around Vermont and New Hampshire, at least 80% of the cars there are Subaru Outbacks. It's literally all they have. Next up is Warren. What do you got this week, Warren?
I'm going to give a Camillien this week, and it's actually just sort of reinforcing Italian Alex's Camillien from last episode, where he gave a Camillien to Purple Bibs, and I said that I was a little skeptical and I wasn't sure, but I am going to give them a Camillien because our guests of this episode, Heavy Pedal, were kind enough to send me a kit that includes purple bibs. So they sent me the jersey. It's kind of like a cream colored jersey with like pretty wild pattern design kind of all over the place. It's called the Mirage Blocks jersey, and they sent that along with they're just plum blocks bib, which are plum, but I mean I'd say they're purple. Anyway, I was wearing that today when I was out for a short ride after work just to spin the legs a little bit. And I gotta say, at first I was a little self-conscious, but I got a couple positive head turns. Well, I'm gonna say there were positive head turns wearing that kit, riding around, because I gotta say, purple bibs, they're pretty eye-catching. And I'll post a photo either when we post this episode or maybe on the next Spandex Sunday showing the kit off. But I thought it looked pretty good, and yeah, I felt pretty good. It wouldn't, as we often say, wouldn't be your everyday kit. I was actually thinking of saving it for our Fast Friday ride, but I wore it today just because I basically wanted to be able to talk about it when we recorded. It's definitely not something I would wear every day, but I'd save it for kind of the faster rides, the Tuesday Night World Championships, that kind of thing.
You looked good, Warren, because you always look good. But I don't get this obsession with purple bibs. They're fine. I don't know. I wouldn't wear them. They're not that exciting.
No, I like them. I agree. I think it's a cool look. I have a pair of eggplant bibs, which is kind of almost like purple, but more.
It's all food-based, plum and eggplant. What else we got? What other purple foods can you name your bibs?
Grapes, blueberry. I don't know, but I have eggplant bibs. They're actually gravel cargo bibs, which is very off-brand for me too.
Not that we know you have a Subaru. It's very on-brand.
Yeah, maybe. Our friends at Ostroy, the New York City brand Ostroy, kind of fun designs, and I love the eggplant bibs. They're a bit hard to match with other stuff, but they look great with a white jersey. I've actually been pairing them with a sage jersey from MAP, which I find is actually a good combo. And I also pair them with my white Ukrainian Vyshyvanka jersey from Q36.5, which looks pretty good. In the spirit of mixing and matching brands, we're fans of that too. So no, I'm all in on the purple toned bibs, Warren. Okay, that's it for another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Thank you to our special guests, Terrence and Jesse from Heavy Pedal. They were kind enough to come on the show, tell their story about their brand and everything. So check them out. Heavy Pedal, great brand out of Arizona in the United States of America. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Tony, who has been back on the show. Thank you, Italian Alex, and thank you, Skylar, as well, for sitting in for Tony and myself last couple of episodes. Great content from them, too. So that's it. We'll be back in a few weeks with more Cycling Fashion Week. Please also send us your Canal submissions. Send us your bikes. We will get back to reviewing those. But yeah, do send us your Canal submissions. We also love the voice notes. If you want to send us a DM, that's a voice note that we can play on the show when we do the Canal. We would love that. You can do so on our Instagram at Cycling Fashion Week. Until then, take care and see you soon.